Time passes as quickly as the wind. In a flash, several days have passed. Today, the Crown Prince's palace is unusually noisy, different from the usual peace. The shrill screams of people ringing throughout the room. Count Balation, you guys quickly get out of my way. But even though he screamed until he was hoarse, the guards still stood in front of him, blocking his way. Niyum announced in a loud voice, you can't come in here. Hearing this, Count Balation became even more mad. His face contorted, burning with unconcealed murderous intent, he protested, don't you know who I am? Do we still need to introduce ourselves? I am the Crown Princess's father. Even though he had lost his patience, Han still replied in a serious and formal tone, His Highness has ordered Count Balation not to enter. Count Balation couldn't believe what he had just heard, so he panicked and asked, Is the Highness in your mouth the Crown Prince? Hearing this character made him nervous. He thought this matter only had to do with Ansia, but now the person giving the orders is the Crown Prince, this guy cannot be touched. He still couldn't believe it. Thousands of questions appeared in his mind as to why that monster and his punishment would interfere in the matter. Who the hell is he? But despite the guard's obstruction, Count Balation still stubbornly tried to be crazy and wanted to get inside. I'm here to take my daughter home, you quickly get out of my way. Seeing that the bodyguard was becoming more and more motionless, Count Balation lost all patience. He used his hand to forcefully push the bodyguard away, trying to rush into the room. But how could the strength of an old man like Count Balation be able to compete with the royal guard? He fought back just like an egg fighting a rock. He was already controlled by the guard, he said solemnly. Threat, if you continue to be rude, I won't tolerate it anymore. Love the Count's day. While the tension was at its climax, a powerful voice rang out, What's so noisy? And the person who made this sound was the person that Count Balation had criticized as a monster earlier, our Crown Prince Black. As soon as the boy appeared, the atmosphere immediately became strangely silent. The guard respectfully bowed, Your Highness, 3 Count Balation still stubbornly wants to go inside. Even though he stays in the palace all year round and never shows his face outside, Blake still has the majestic appearance of a true Crown Prince. He solemnly orders the servants to bring Count Balation. Go greenhouse. At the greenhouse of the Crown Prince's palace, where a historic event took place when the female Ansia returned from time to time. At this moment, there was no one inside except Black and the evil Count Balation. With a noble demeanor, Black gently picked up the steaming hot cup of tea, then slowly enjoy a sip of fragrant hot tea in the middle of a freezing cold winter. But on the opposite side, Count Balation was not allowed to sit and enjoy tea so calmly. He silently evaluated the Crown Prince. Even though he was my son-in-law, this was the first time I met him since that day. Wedding. I remember that he used to be a gloomy child. Why is this demeanor completely different from what I've heard? What happened these past 2 years? Blake looked up at him, his eyes had never been so cold and wanting to strangle the other person. Now Count Balation's mood is already hanging on the tree branch. I didn't expect that there would come a day when a person like him who had gone through half his life would be afraid of a young boy with a green nose. Unable to stand that suffocating attitude any longer, he put down his teacup and got to the point. Diana is waiting for me, so I came here just to take her home. Black didn't care about his lengthy explanation. He calmly replied, Diana is sleeping now, you don't need to come anymore. Because starting from now, Diana will live in the Crown Prince's palace. Hearing this, even a fool could understand the problem. Count Balation was stunned and thought that it was that ungrateful girl who betrayed him. This made him even more angry, his teeth clenched tightly. Since when? But he could not reveal his unstable mental state in front of the Crown Prince. So he softly asked, Your Highness, could it be that she said something crazy to you? I was very worried because my daughter had a bad habit of lying, and even the relationship between me and her gradually deteriorated because of her personality. Just yesterday she told me she wanted to become a crown princess and wanted me to send her sister away. Even though she's still young, I taught her a lesson. Count Balation kept waving his hands, gesticulating to draw a story that couldn't be more perfect. I don't know who likes to lie more. Can you never get tired of being crazy and crazy like that? Black also knew about these baseless lies of his. He asked in a cold voice, so you also scolded my wife the same way you treated Diana? Who would have thought that this guy was still very talkative? Count Balatian should have gone to the comedy challenge, any story he made up would be so damn reasonable, ladies and gentlemen. His face was blank due to the moral lecture. Because he is the eldest child, we must educate him more strictly. I do everything out of love for my daughter. People who don't know all slander me and say that I tortured my daughter, and I think that Ansia has also misunderstood her father since she was a child. Black impatiently put down the teacup and asked suspiciously, is it just a misunderstanding? Count Balatian also nodded cooperatively, yes, yes. It's all just a misunderstanding. By the way, I hope the Crown Prince will help me clear up the misunderstanding with my two daughters. At this point, it seemed that Count Balatian's integrity was at an end. Who would have thought that his rotten mouth would start working at full capacity? Prince, please forgive me if I speak frankly. But His Royal Highness doesn't seem to have much time left, right? If you leave, who will be by Ansia's side? Your Highness said he would love her, but you only said that because Ansia is your wife, right? If you truly want Ansia to live well for the rest of her life, then give power to our family. Also, if Ansia continues to treat her father like this, she will obviously lose her social status and be despised by everyone. In the end, she will have to return to my house. Oh my God! Why do you come to reclaim your daughter, old man? Talking like this will make you feel like a fool. Sure enough, even the little rabbit Crown Prince couldn't help but exclaim, how disgusting. Hearing these words, Count Balatian immediately jumped in fear. He also knew that this steering phase of his had already entered the ground. Blake looked at him with hatred and coldly announced, I will not die. Break it, Prince. If this breed doesn't break, leave it to me. Hearing these words, Count Balatian suddenly doubted human life. His heart was already hotter than fire. Could it be that he had found a way to break the curse? But Blake's next words quelled his doubts. He said that he had promised Ansia that he would not die. Count Balatian breathed a sigh of relief. He seemed reluctant to advise. Sigh, Your Highness must know how to accept the truth. Blake's attitude was still very determined. He boldly declared to Count Balatian, even if I die, Ansia will never return to that house again. Count Balatian heard that and laughed heartily, ha ha. What will she do if she doesn't come home? In his heart, he had already opened the flag to celebrate. Look at this monster here, pretending to be as noble as a real Crown Prince one. It's so funny I'm going to die. I don't know when. My Crown Prince's ability to look at faces and guess what he's thinking is so top-notch, he said coldly. Are you thinking why a monster like me has such an arrogant look? Are not. As expected, Count Balatian sat stiffly in place as if he had been sprayed with glue. He was already an old man and had a boy walking around in his stomach, which was more humiliating than the word humiliating. His mind was already exploding. What the hell was going on? Don't tell me it can read my mind. Blake continued the next tongue Chiu. He did not let this old man open his mouth anymore. The Count seems quite interested in my curse, right? Count Balatian immediately waved his hand and refused, no, Prince. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and grabbed Count Balatian's hand on the table, causing him to panic. Then looked at him with eyes, try letting go of my hand. Then you've probably heard it already. There are rumors that the downward goddess curse is like a contagious disease that can be transmitted from person to person. Count Balatian was so scared that his face turned black. He stammered and rebutted, that's just a baseless rumor. But my heart soon trembled. How could a kid be this strong? This isn't due to strength, I feel like I'm being sucked into something. Blake looked at him smugly, threateningly, that's not just a rumor. It's more than that. Now it's too late for Count Balatian to withdraw his hand. A strange light suddenly appeared around. He was in so much pain that he screamed, his vision was blurry, he staggered and fell to the ground. His hands also began to appear strange patterns like he was cursed. Scared to the point of crying. After treating this guy well, Black stood up proudly. He didn't forget to remind his father-in-law, stay away from Ansia and out of my sight. Don't let me see a single hair of yours. After saying that, he turned around and left, leaving his father-in-law in a state where he was about to have diarrhea all over his pants. Finally, peace returns to this place. Sunlight poured into the room. Diana loomed over Dua, she was still not awake. Ansia sat to the side, caring and comforting the little girl. She secretly felt lucky that Jian was still sleeping. Otherwise, the little girl would definitely have been scared by Count Belation. Thinking of the prince suddenly gave her a sweet smile. Leaving her younger sister lying on the bed, Ansia went back to her husband's room. It's true that if she had the beauty, she would leave her sister. Outside the door came her voice, "Your Highness. Let's go in." When Blake heard her voice, he immediately raised his eyes to look for his wife's figure. As soon as she saw her, someone immediately acted the role of an obedient little rabbit, looking at her with sparkling eyes, completely different from the way she looked at her father-in-law just now. Now Black must have understood the sentence, "When you go out you're a shark, when you come home you're a fish." Seeing the prince's pale appearance, Ansia immediately asked with concern, "Did you stay up all night last night?" The crown prince immediately denied it and said, "It's not like that. I've only been missing my wife for a little while, but that's already the case." The prince smiled and explained, "I just couldn't sleep." Looking at his pale appearance, Ansia could not bear to grumble. Suddenly the prince held out a rose and shyly said, "Hey, this is for you. Yesterday I went to the greenhouse and saw these brilliantly blooming rose buds, so I picked some to bring home to give to Ansia. I'm just so old that I already know how to give flowers to my wife. I don't have 100 points, but suddenly getting this unexpected gift made Ansia extremely happy. She smiled sweetly, "Thank you, Your Highness. It's very beautiful." Saying that, she reached out her hand to receive the rose in Black's hand. But suddenly he lost his balance and fell down, his vision darkened. Ansia panicked and ran to help the crown prince up. "Your Highness, are you okay?" Even though the crown prince insisted that he was fine, he just felt a little dizzy. But Ansia still couldn't rest assured, she immediately wanted to run to find the royal doctor. "But as soon as I stood up, someone reached out to stop me." The boy used a weak tone, looking at her with expectant eyes, "There's no need for that. You can just stay here with me." Seeing that Ansia was still hesitant, the boy immediately used the fatal card. He grabbed her arm and hugged her mouth tightly, constantly begging, "Don't go." Seeing how weak the crown prince looked, Ansia could only helplessly stay with him. The room returned to its strange quietness on the big bed with two children holding each other's hands tightly. The scene was extremely peaceful, as if they had fallen asleep the whole day. When Ansia woke up, she somehow felt like something was very painful. Ansia thought she was having a nightmare, but she couldn't remember what she dreamed about. At this moment, a familiar young voice called my name, causing Ansia to wake up. Facing her was the image of a familiar young man smiling and welcoming her. As if there was still an echo of yesterday's worries, Ansia gently stroked the crown prince's cheek and kindly asked, "Did you sleep well?" The crown prince was also very interested and replied, "Yes. I slept very well." I saw that the crown prince's face was still red. Ansia immediately wondered if his fever had subsided, but why was his face still red? Who would have thought that the prince has recently changed from a shy boy to a flirtatious boy, a sweet and teasing boy? It's because Ansia keeps touching my face. It's a bit of a waste to smell like this if you don't catch it. So someone is laughing like a flag inside. "Oh, my husband is so adorable." It's true that the character in a 19-language novel is different. The usually timid crown prince was unusually bold these days. He moved towards Ansia, then let her arms wrap around his neck. Seeing the crown prince lying in her arms, Ansia burst out laughing. "I thought you didn't like being touched." Unexpectedly, the boy looked at her lovingly and replied in a somewhat ambiguous tone, "I never said I didn't like your touch." Sure enough, as soon as the sentence ended, someone suddenly felt as if they had been sprayed with glue. Why did she keep feeling like her husband was starting to become more cunning? Who to blame? I can only blame you. How did you raise that baby rabbit to turn into a wolf? So, in the end, God had an eye. Count Belation did not seek retribution, but retribution came to him. After the disturbance at the Crown Prince's palace, the Emperor sent Count Belation to a small island in the south near the Valley of Chaos. Sending him to guard the island was just an excuse. But in fact it was no different from being exiled. There were many rumors that he had gone crazy because of this mental shock. Not sure if he just created fake news to hope for a return or not, but even if the rumors are true, the emperor still won't change his mind. Evildoers must receive evil. Perhaps now Count Balatian is crazy in that place, but who will care about him? And since that day, Diana has already entered her household registration book into the Crown Prince's palace, and she is preparing for the Academy's entrance exam. To support exam season, Ansia brought her a cup of tea. Seeing her sister care about her like that, Diana's eyes kept shooting hearts at her, and quickly flattered her. The timing was right. I'm starving. You can study while drinking the tea I make. Just thinking about it made her eyes light up with excitement. But what the heck? Why do you drink tea when you're hungry? This logic is so strange. I would like to refuse to understand you guys. After that, Diana wrapped herself around Ansia's feet, constantly showing off her little white rabbit appearance. My dear sister, I love you so much. The exam is coming soon, so now Diana is having to study hard, and everywhere on her desk are books. As a crazy older sister, Ansia kindly reminded her, don't worry, you shouldn't be too pressured. You know you can also participate in next year's exam. But the girl insisted. Diana didn't want to be called her classmate by younger children. Seeing this, Ansia was even more satisfied. Diana didn't even accept the letter of introduction to the academy like other nobles and wanted to pass the exam herself. Since my younger sister is so determined, an older sister like her can only try to encourage her as much as possible. Good luck, Diana, sister. Time passed quickly like a dog running in the field, and in an instant the exam results were out. Ansia excitedly picked up the newspaper and couldn't help but praise, 9th place in the exam. Congratulations, honey. Diana. But why was Diana so sad after hearing the results that she cowered in a corner like that? Could it be that Diana wants to be first to be happy? Ansia immediately opened her eyes and looked at the girl in surprise. Diana. Ranking 9th proved that I did very well. Diana still maintained her sad demeanor. Yes. I'm just a little overwhelmed because the results are better than I expected. But the girl's face still dropped as if she had lost a lot of rice, making Ansia even more curious. Why is my face still so sad? It turned out that what made her sad was that when she entered the academy, she had to leave her sister. Just thinking about it made her want to quit school and stay home. Hearing that, Ansia immediately pinched her cheeks and teased, so what do you think about not going to school anymore and staying with me forever? This suggestion is quite good. Who would have thought the girl would brush it off? I can't do that. I must become a knight. So sister. Please wait for me 6 years. 6 years later I will return with a very different look. Ansia was suddenly stunned when she heard Diana's words, 6 years. She wondered if after 6 years she herself would be able to lift the Crown Prince's curse. Or you will have to give up everything in this palace. Abandoned everyone she loved and then quietly left. Seeing Ansia stunned, Diana called out to her in confusion, Sister. Sister, what's wrong? Ansia quickly regained her composure, her eyes filled with determination as she made a wish. Yes, sure. Two sisters clasped their hands together. After that, Diana looked at her hopefully. You have to promise me. Don't wait for Ansia to react. Diana immediately pulled her hand and twisted it, so it's a promise. You must definitely not go back on your word. Even though she doesn't know what the future holds, Ansia has a certain belief that the two cousins will meet again. But in the end this matter had to be temporarily put aside. The new year is approaching and the palace is also busy preparing for the festival. In the luxurious room, everything is designed extremely sophisticatedly, everywhere is decorated with red. Ansia silently calculated, if based on the original story, this year was the year that Emperor Tenzthian fell into the trap of the male protagonist Richard. And then he will lose his life, leaving Prince Black alone to fight against the crowd like a tiger stalking its prey. But as daughter-in-law of Emperor Tenzthian and Crown Princess of Black, Ansia will definitely use every means to prevent this from happening. At this moment, both father and son were walking hand in hand into the stands of the New Year's celebration. My God! Or can I change the story, author? This couple looks so beautiful. It's best for Ansia to love the Emperor and for Diana to love Crown Prince Black. The door has just been opened. The father and son walked together on both sides of the aisle, everyone respectfully bowed to the great son of the empire and His Royal Highness the Crown Princess. Suddenly the party had started, everyone was engrossed in singing and dancing. The atmosphere of the ceremony was extremely bustling, filled with only laughter. At this moment, she seemed a bit out of place at the party, but in fact she was comfortably enjoying the dances of everyone around her. Suddenly a voice broke Ansia's attention. "You look very gorgeous today. Crown Prince Phi." And the owner of that voice is none other than the male protagonist Richard. Who else can grow potatoes in this land? If Richard had the second thickest skin, it would be difficult for anyone to dare to take on the first position, after the previous humiliation. It seemed like he still hadn't learned his lesson, so he approached and asked, "You don't plan to dance today?" "Voo. After all, it's the new year, it can't be too cruel." Ansia coldly replied, "Yes." Who would have thought that this guy would start eating melons? He was still convinced that it was because she was a bad dancer that she didn't dare dance with him. He used his fatherly voice to advise, "If you don't practice, you won't improve." Ansia looked at him impatiently, "You are worrying too much." At this moment, Diana also appeared from nowhere. As soon as she arrived, she wanted to make a fuss with Richard. "Sister. My dance is very beautiful. Don't speak ambiguously. This guy has a thick skin that can be compared to concrete." Even though Diana said that, he still smiled and started talking to Ansia, the person who trained alone. "What? So people also do cute things like that, right?" Ordinary people would feel nauseous when they heard it, but even as an insider, Diana couldn't listen anymore. The girl immediately interrupted him, "My sister doesn't have to practice to be praised by you for being cute." He also refused to give up and turned to criticize Diana, "This lady, you are still young and like this is not polite." But Diana was unharmed by his criticism, she naturally took Ansia's arm like a fly. After that, the two cousins left together, walking and talking happily, leaving behind Richard standing in a corner as if waiting for his husband. What a shame and despicable thing. Well, bitter fruit is also a fruit, try to swallow it, tough guy. In the bright red rose garden, the sunset light adds to the New Year's atmosphere. Diana squeezed her ankle and complained, "My leg hurts so much." The little girl scolded, "I will never wear these high heels again." Seeing Diana with such personality and strength made Ansia laugh, but at the same time she also felt strange. In the original story she was a fragile female protagonist. Anyway, Diana's appearance now is the same. "Wonderful." Ansia suddenly asked, "Diana, what do you think about Sir Richard?" Richard? Who would have thought that Diana would bluntly criticize him? "I don't like him, he looks so annoying, and he also has a habit of gossiping." She was even ready to jump into the abyss if she had to marry Richard. "Oh sister. If I knew that in my past life I loved someone to death, I would be very embarrassed." Thanks to that, Ansia also felt reassured. She was very worried that Diana would be seduced by Richard like in the original, but now maybe everything is okay. Two sisters happily chatting together under the bright sunset. Suddenly it was late at night, but all the lights and torches were still bright. Ansia was now seated in the chair next to the emperor. She silently wondered, was it because of the New Year's party? But why is it after midnight? Everyone is still having fun like this. The emperor saw her return and immediately greeted her. He also reminded her with care, "If you feel tired, you can leave first." Truly the most sophisticated father-in-law on earth. Who would have thought that Ansia looked at her father so mischievously that she would seduce her son into wanting to drink with him? It seems like the father's catchphrase is a lie. Every time he hears Ansia's rude words, the emperor spits out this sentence, but in the end he still tells her, "Follow me." Father and son walked awkwardly on the quiet bridge. The emperor gently pushed the heavy door open. Father and son both stepped out onto the balcony, the highest place of the palace. Standing in a place with such a view, Ansia could not help but shout out in surprise. As expected, if you don't admire it, you won't take the money. The scenery is so beautiful that standing here, Ansia can see the whole palace and the garden below, all shimmering and magical under the lights. The emperor shook the wine glass in his hand, recalling the fragments of memories that he had always kept hidden deep in his heart. Blake loved coming to this room. The boy always hides here when he plays hide and seek. Looked at the dark red wine glass shaking Lu back and forth. Ansia's mood suddenly dropped, an indescribable feeling kept rising. Suddenly she looked straight into Emperor Tenstian's vague eyes and requested, "Father, can you visit the Crown Prince's palace as a New Year's gift? His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will surely be very happy if you come there." Emperor Tenstian sighed. He lowered his eyes sadly and refused. Just one small mistake could cause that child to suffer danger and pain. But Ansia still did not intend to give up. She tried to convince him, "You are being too cautious. I will definitely break your Highness's curse. As long as I'm alive, no one will be able to harm His Highness the Crown Prince." Emperor Tenstian was still struggling mentally. He looked at the bloody red machete, his eyes also clearly showing hesitation. Ansia continued to persuade him, "Besides, Father, I will remind you again, there is no dark magic in this world that can transfer the goddess's curse from one person to another. I'm not sure where you heard it from, but absolutely don't believe it, and you also have to be careful with the Castle family, especially Richard Castle." Hearing these long words but filled with so much concern, Emperor Tenstian couldn't help but laugh softly. "What do you think a little cat like him can do to me?" But Ansia was still filled with fear, her eyes showing confusion. Of course she knew that Emperor Tenstian was not such an easy person to deceive, but in the original novel, there's a reason he fell into Richard's trap. One day, Blake's condition suddenly became worse. And unfortunately the door of darkness also coincidentally opened again. To fulfill his duty as a king, Emperor Tenstian must seal that door himself. But if he uses the power of light, Blake's life cannot be guaranteed. Emperor Tenstian finally had no choice but to use dark magic even though he knew it was very dangerous, and in the end he paid the price with his life. Just thinking about it made Ansia shiver. She looked firmly at the emperor. "You are a person with language ability. You will definitely break your highness's curse. So you can trust me." The emperor stood thoughtfully for a long time. Finally, he used his warm hand to gently rub Ansia's head, reassuring her, "Don't worry. I have 2 people to protect. So I won't act rashly." Ansia's heart suddenly heated up, a warm feeling suddenly rose in her heart. Even though the original owner's biological father in this world was terrible, she had another wonderful father. According to the original story, Emperor Tenstian will die this year. Oh, why is your father-in-law still so handsome even when he dies? If you're handsome, please don't lie in the coffin. So Ansia told herself to try her best to stop this. Spring is also gradually coming, replacing the cold winter. The whole palace is filled with flowers, and now it is time for Diana to go to the academy. The girl looked at Black sincerely, "Your Highness. You know I can only trust you, right? Without you, I would not be able to leave her with peace of mind. You must protect her carefully." Hearing that, the Crown Prince nodded, filled with determination. "Rest assured, sister-in-law." "That's natural, sister-in-law, please be careful on your journey." Feeling sad and emotional for a few seconds, the 2 of them started arguing again with an older topic than old words, that is, who does Ansia like more. Just like that, the 2 started arguing again. Ansia stood to the side and was sweating. They were almost there but they were still arguing. In the end, still being the messenger of peace, Ansia stood up to stop her. "You should go now. If you delay any longer, you will be late for the admission ceremony." Thanks to that, the discussion ended and the 3 sadly said goodbye to each other. This time, Diana will not go alone. Ansia will also follow apart to see the little girl off. She looked at the Crown Prince with longing. "Your Highness, let's go." Even though the prince could not bear to leave his beloved wife, he still smiled at her in the end. "Take care, Ansia." So both sisters boarded the carriage, leaving only the Crown Prince's back standing watching the carriage slowly roll and leave. Suddenly the carriage left the palace, wandering along the tree-lined road. Green. The atmosphere in the car was also very quiet. Only the sound of the carriage wheels remained. Neither of the 2 sisters said anything. Before the moment of separation, both of them held their own secret thoughts in their hearts. Suddenly, Diana gently handed out a box to Ansia. "Sister, please keep this." Ansia asked suspiciously, "What is this?" Diana hesitated for a moment then said, "These are the homeowners and the keys to the Count's mansion. When Dad left, he gave them to me and said he was getting a divorce." Although quite confused by this sudden situation, Ansia still firmly refused. "Diana, you cannot accept this." But Diana didn't give her that chance. She grabbed her hand and told her. "He said that our family was on the brink of collapse. But thanks to my mother, we were able to survive until today. Most of our current assets are also our mother's assets. These things were originally should belong to her sister, but Ansia still felt unable to bear it. She reluctantly accepted but still had a sad feeling in her heart and looked at Diana. "Thank you." Who would have thought that Diana would laugh at her? "Why are you so serious and even thank me? I just returned them to their true owner." But at this time, in the distance, the academy also appeared majestically behind the dense trees. Diana looked out the window admiringly and happily said to her sister, "Ah. I think we're almost there, sister." It was just as Diana said. They soon arrived at their destination. The girl even pretended to politely get out of the car to help Ansia down, also acting like a knight. I also don't know what happened that made Ansia's face so panicked. It was strange to see this scene and not panic. A group of tall, dark knights lined up in a long line, blowing horns loudly to welcome them. "Visit Crown Princess Qian, blessings of the Empire." If two sisters enter the middle of the top male idols like this, no one can compare to them. With admission standards like this, everyone wants to go to school. Ansia felt guilty and thought to herself, "Oh my God. Dad, there's no need to prepare to this extent." The admission ceremony was held extremely solemnly. The team of musicians playing the trumpet was extremely dignified. Diana with a confident demeanor is marching in the ranks of newly arrived students. She looks extremely mature, completely different from his usual face of scolding his wife, so much so that Ansia sitting in the stands was also amazed. As expected, our Diana is the coolest. Before saying goodbye, the two sisters still looked at each other longingly, and Diana raised her hand in a knightly salute. "Sister, I'll go." After saying that, the girls started crying again. "I really can't leave my sister behind and leave. If there's a fly buzzing around you, you have to tell me, and I'll swat it to death." Ansia also did not forget to remind the girl, "No need to worry about me, just remember to send me letters regularly. Go away, it's getting late." Before leaving, Diana still tried to look back and say goodbye to her sister, so both sisters officially said goodbye to each other, and this goodbye lasted for 6 years. Ansia tried to smile as she looked at Diana's strong back, gradually disappearing into the large crowd of students. Then she looked down at the owner's trunk that Diana had wholeheartedly handed over to her. Her hands suddenly tightened her grip on it. She will try to take care of these things well for Diana. And now the thing she wants to do most is to return to the Crown Prince's palace, where there is still a person, always waiting for her to return. After a while of squirrels jumping on the road, until it was just getting dark, Ansia was able to return to the Crown Prince's palace. Even though he is not allowed to leave the palace, the prince can still review the images of his sister-in-law Diana through the recording stone that Ansia recorded. Both the boy and Eden watched attentively, each one praising Diana's coolness. But what the prince wanted to see more was the image of Ansia at the ceremony. He turned to look regretful and asked her, "But Ansia didn't record me?" Ansia could only laugh and shake her head. "Yes, after all, it's not my admission ceremony." Who would have thought that Hans would stand next to him happily boasting? There is no record of that anywhere. Not even recording one shot but a dozen. Hans proudly patted his chest to show off his achievements. "I recorded the image of the Crown Princess with the #1 Knight Squad on these dozens of recording stones." Yes. Looking at these senseless things over and over again, Ansia still couldn't understand, why would she record these things? It turned out that the person who requested Hans was the emperor himself. Hearing that, Ansia suddenly laughed out loud. "Dad, it's Dad. How can you waste precious recording stones on meaningless things like this?" Even though she thought about it many times, Ansia still didn't understand why His Majesty the Emperor ordered Hans to record these things. Melissa stood next to her, smiling widely, reminding her, it must have been a gift from His Majesty. Ansia opened her eyes wide in suspicion. A gift? It seemed like she still didn't understand Emperor Tenstian's meaning. But when she saw the prince's happy face when he saw her image, and the outside world was reflected in the ball, she also partly understood. Melissa stood next to her and immediately explained to Ansia, "This is a gift from His Majesty the Emperor to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince." Seeing her little husband so excited, Ansia also felt happy. Fortunately, her little rabbit husband seemed to like them very much. "Okay, wait 2 more years, who is the rabbit and who is the wolf, we still don't know, old lady. The Belatian family is descended from Leontel Belatian, a great god of light, who together with Philip founded the Asteric Empire. The goddess of light was angry when Philip betrayed her, so she sealed the power of light across the continent. That's why the power of the descendants of light is also getting weaker and weaker. Gradually that power has weakened to the point that people can no longer recognize who the descendants of light are. But after all, this is still a long-standing family of light, so Ansia holds great hope in the legacy left by the Belatian family. Maybe there will be some clue to help her find a way to destroy it. Crown Prince Blake's curse, even if it's just a small hope, Ansia still has to try it. She gently caressed the key to the family mansion that Diana had given her before she left for school. She silently judged that in the Belatian family's study, there would probably be many books about curses or light magic, so that was the reason she came here. Today, the carriage gradually entered. Inside the mansion. Looking at this towering house without a single person, lying silently among the shadows of trees, no one would think that it was once a prosperous family. Ansia determinedly told Melissa, "Let's go in quickly." So the two of them entered this deserted and desolate mansion together. Ansia skillfully opened the heavy wooden door. Inside is a room full of books. This is also the study of Count Belatian before. Looking around for a while, Ansia couldn't help but silently judge. Compared to the standards of a family with great prestige and a long history, the number of books here is really too small. She discovered that on the shelf there were a few books about light magic displayed. They were brand new, and didn't look like they had ever been read. Seeing that it didn't seem like she could collect anything from Count Belatian's library, Ansia decided to go to the main archive and maybe there would be something better. Ansia used the key Diana gave her to unlock the main storage room. The heavy door was pulled open by Melissa. Ansia could not hide her expectations. There must be something useful here, right? The room is dark, filled with a mysterious black color. Her eyes didn't know what she had touched, but she was so surprised. Did she find anything useful? But who would have thought that when it was lit up, the whole dark room shimmered magically, glittering because the jewelry, gold, silver, and gems reflected back. Ansia did not expect the archive in her imagination to turn out. Turns out to be a place like this. There are only gold, silver and jewels everywhere, not a single book, even the mirror is made of gold, lines 4 and 9. And even expensive jewelry boxes. Ansia lamented in frustration, let alone how to lift the curse. There's not even information about heirs or light magic here. No wonder this family failed. Seeing that she couldn't gain anything, Melissa immediately advised her, "Crown Princess, or we should go home." So the car was stuck on the main road again. Today's trip really wasn't smooth at all. Ansia sat dejectedly in the car, she turned her eyes to the distant scenery, she even had to return to a place with nothing but disgusting memories just to leave with empty hands. She closed her eyes tiredly, her mind constantly replaying the horrifying memories of that mansion. Count Belatian's scoldings and curses, both you and your mother should die. I'm so angry just seeing that face of yours. I don't know if it was because the memories were so disgusting that they made Ansia nauseous or because of motion sickness, her face turned pale. Ansia could only helplessly cover her mouth with her hand. Melissa saw her unstable condition and immediately asked, "Is the Crown Princess okay?" Seeing that Ansia still couldn't get better, she quickly stopped the carriage. They both walked down the middle of the road, under a carpet of green grass. Ansia was so weak that she had to be helped down by Melissa. She didn't look like she had any life left. Seeing that, Melissa became even more worried, she frantically suggested, "Crown Princess. Or should I call Tai Wai to come?" But Ansia doesn't want to be bothered like that, she shakes her head and refuses, "It's okay. I'm just car sick. Let's stand and enjoy the breeze for a bit. Looking at the vast green grass field in front of me, the sunlight gently shining, along with the breeze carrying gently flying leaves. Everything seemed to be trying to calm Ansia's panicked soul. Even though she was not the real Ansia, every time the original owner's past appeared, she somehow always felt very heavy, like a fruit. My heart is being strangled by someone. Everything seemed to be trying to calm Ansia's panicked soul. Even though she was not the real Ansia, every time the original owner's past appeared, she somehow always felt very heavy, like a fruit. My heart was being strangled by someone. After a moment of regaining composure, Ansia decided to get in the car with Melissa and return to the Crown Prince's palace, but suddenly her eyes encountered something that made Ansia startled and surprised. A teenager is standing in front of a tree full of flowers. That person's silhouette is so familiar that she can recognize who he is just by looking at him. That person is the male protagonist of the novel, Richard Castle. Oh my God. If you're a villain, please don't be handsome. Ansia curiously followed Richard's every move. Today his expression was sad, different from his usual joking appearance. She silently judged that today might not be that day. The day that completely changed Richard's life. Those eyes contained so many feelings. What kind of person is hidden in that fluttering cauliflower shell? As a transbook reader, Ansia knows the plot very well. Richard's mother was a Roman slave. The Romans were once the rulers of the eastern continent thousands of years ago. They are the aristocracy and rule over the Jockin Empire. But these people were immersed in luxury and pleasure, they dominated everyone with oppression and exploitation. The goddess of light was very angry at the brutality of the Roman Empire, so she gave her strength. Give Philip strength to drive them away. When the Jockin Empire collapsed, the new empire was established by Philip. The Roman Empire collapsed because of its brutal slavery policy. Even now, thousands of years have passed, they are still despised by people, while their pregnant wife Castle still eats. Lay with a beautiful slave girl, and thus Richard was born. Initially, the boy was raised as a slave, but in the end, Lord Castle thought that he was his biological son. Thanks to his intelligence, Richard was finally granted the Duke of Castle, admitted to being an illegitimate child. Richard was very happy about that. After he tried harder, Castle accepted him, and promised to accept his civilian mother as well. But that happiness did not last long. The sound of coughing echoed continuously in the shabby and dilapidated room. Seeing his mother coughing endlessly, Richard stood aside and was extremely worried. He hurriedly asked her, "Mom. Mom, are you okay? I'll go ask the Duke to call the royal physician for you." But his mother used her weak voice to stop him. "It's okay, son. Mom is fine. Don't go ask him." Even though he was forced to listen to his mother, Richard still didn't mind. He clenched his fists into fists. But in the end, because he loved his mother, he still went to Duke Castle's place. He sincerely begged him, "Your Excellency. Your mother is sick. Please let me call the doctor to examine her. I promise to study better." Duke Castle was not angry at his request, he just coldly asked, "Is that woman sick? Surely it's not tonsillar disease." At that time, Richard was still too young, he still did not understand what the disease was. He was about to ask again, but the Duke turned his chair back and coldly asked Richard to leave. Richard clenched his fists angrily, but in the end he could do nothing but obey the orders of servant Castle. But then Richard's mother's fate was no better. She died, not because of the plague but because she was dragged out and killed by order of Duke Castle. Just like that, Richard's mother was buried deep under layers of soil. Richard's outcome was no better, that child lost his beloved mother in just one night. He desperately called his mother, but in response he was only met with a dark and empty night just like Richard's future. Until he was determined to have no connection or involvement with Tansinol anymore, the door to his house opened. The warehouse that was always tightly closed finally opened. Richard desires to find out the reason why the Duke killed his mother. So after being released, he immediately went straight to the Duke's library, and read books about the disease Tansinol in the mouth that Castle once mentioned. Tansinol is a plague that came from the Romans. It has the ability to infect and cause extremely high host death. The patient will have symptoms such as bleeding in many places, dark spots, and a fierce appearance, making the patient's appearance look like the descendants of the curse. So it also called the second curse cast by the goddess of light. The more Richard read about it, the more certain he was, his mother did not have the disease called tansinol. Every time a Roman got sick, no matter what, people would blame the sick person for having tansinol and would try to kill them, which is why Richard's mother had no choice other than enduring a tormenting illness. He remembered his mother's weak instructions not to tell anyone about her illness, but he naively went to Princess Castle and told him everything, begging him to save his mother. Richard was miserable, realizing that it was his temporary stupidity that caused his mother to leave forever. After that day, Richard's personality changed completely. You swore before your mother's grave that you would take revenge on Duke Castle and all the people in that family. He will gradually take everything away from them and cause them to die the most horrible deaths they could ever imagine. And then, the golden throne will also belong to you. Everyone who once despised him because of his inferiority. Everyone will have to kneel at Richard's feet and worship him as the great light of this empire. I also don't understand why something prompted Ansia to go see Richard, so she went to greet him. Long time no see, Duke Castle. Richard has restored his usual dignified appearance. I didn't expect to meet you here. But I'm so glad to have met you. Ansia didn't seem to pay attention to his polite words. Her eyes were fixed on the tree blooming bright red in front. She thought to herself, so this is exactly that tree. It's a simple and somewhat rustic tree with flowers blooming beautifully. Seeing Ansia's eyes fixed on this tree, Richard used the most normal voice possible to explain, this is a tombstone, a Roman woman was buried here. Ansia was a bit surprised by Richard's calm words. She was surprised to hear Richard say such a Roman phrase. As far as she remembered, in the original story Richard never told Diana about this. She gently brought up the conversation and asked, is this an acquaintance of yours? But I didn't expect Richard to calmly refuse, no. I just heard that. I heard that she has tansinol disease. Even though she heard that, Ansia still gently walked towards that flower tree, then quickly stopped there. Then he took his handkerchief and tied it on a spindly tree branch into a beautiful shape. Richard was startled when he saw her strange actions and stopped. What are you doing? Ansia didn't look at him, she was still trying to shape the scarf on that branch. I heard that this was a Roman visitation ritual. Richard found it even more strange. Are you showing respect to a Roman? Ansia was as calm as not before that shock. Am I not allowed? Richard was still determined to stop her. It was rare for his face to look so weak. Don't you know what tansinol disease is? Who was too careless? On the left side of her chest with an urgent look from Richard, Ansia quietly replied, we are not sure if it is tansinol disease or not. We have heard that there are many cases of Romans being killed because they were suspected of having this terrible disease. If it really is tansinol disease, those bacteria would have died a long time ago. Richard seemed to have lost his usual calmness. He looked at her absent-mindedly. The goddess's curse could be passed on to others. That's it. Ansia is still working on tying the scarf. Oh my God. Is she the only scarf that takes forever to tie? She said softly, I don't believe that. Every gentle breeze here seemed to be loosening the knot in her heart. Ansia was about to reach towards the scarf. Abdominal stability must be tightened a little more. Unexpectedly, Richard suddenly rushed forward, he held her hand tightly. Hey, let go, my friend. Richard looked at her indignantly, as if blaming, everyone around is saying that you consider yourself a god and tolerate a monster, so you are enjoying those words. Are you sick? Isn't that stupid? Ansia also seemed surprised by Richard's strange attitude. This was the first time she saw this person unable to keep calm. It took 3 seconds to calm down. She pushed Richard's hand away, then looked at him seriously. I never thought I was a person with so much tolerance. I just don't like vague fears like that. Richard still doesn't understand what fear she's talking about here. Ansia turned around to adjust the scarf on the tree and said, it's true that always remaining vigilant is very important, but I don't want to be tied to vague fears like this. And then belittle and hurt others because of it. Waiting for her to finish speaking, the scarf was also tied by Ansia according to ancient Roman rituals. Richard stood still as if waiting for her husband, as if he was still trying to digest her moral words. Then he suddenly burst out laughing, you are truly an interesting and special girl. This is a classic line from romantic male protagonists. Seeing him starting to joke, Ansia reminded him, Sir Castle. Aren't you too old to learn basic etiquette? Richard is also very smart, do you want me to call you your Royal Highness? Face those teasing words. Ansia still replied with a serious face, it's not a matter of whether I want or don't want to, but that he has an obligation to call me that in accordance with common rules. The insolent Richard has returned, the poor boy from before is no longer there. He smiled and replied, I will remember that. Ansia still didn't stop, she continued to lecture, also you have to apologize for those disrespectful words about the Crown Prince, you called him a monster. I ask you to remember that the one named Black Garacillion is the Crown Prince of this empire. Richard didn't say anything. He kept looking at her with those crimson eyes. If everything developed according to the original story, then Richard's evil actions would have already begun. In the original story, Richard took advantage of many people and did not hesitate to sacrifice their lives just so he could become emperor. However, the story's development was very different from the original. Somehow Ansia felt that the hopeless plan could be changed. Returning to reality, Richard quietly replied, I know that, how can anyone in this empire not know the truth? Before leaving, Ansia still looked back and reminded a few words. I'm very happy to hear you say that, Sir Shu. You are a very talented person. If you know how to use your talent in the right place, all blessings and glory will come to you soon. Everyone in the castle family is greedy and useless, so Richard can easily take over the family without using cowardly tricks. If Richard was content with his duke title and did not develop greed, everyone would be happy. Who would have thought that Ansia's good intentions would not be well received by Richard? He looked at her jokingly, blessing? Does that mean you will be with me? Ansia turned her face angrily. Because the title of Crown Princess is also known as the blessing of the empire. So this guy Richard is playing with you? Ansia didn't want to argue anymore, she turned around and left. You really should go back and learn basic etiquette again. We've spent too much time here. We have to go. Watching her leave, Richard still called back, I'm really looking forward to our next meeting. Then he stood and laughed alone like a crazy person, probably thinking of some dirty scheme. Ansia suddenly returned to the carriage, she ordered the servant to quickly return to the palace. She silently calculated that she seemed to have been out longer than expected. I have to return to the palace soon. To see my little husband again. Carrying that hope, it seemed like the car was moving faster and faster. At this time, perhaps Ansia did not know that where that flower tree grew, the wind was still blowing each flower petal in the wind, but her scarf was still attached tightly to the tree as a tribute to the woman's bitter fate. Richard's face no longer looked as sad as before. In front of this grave, he didn't need to disguise anything. This must be the first time Mom has received a gift, right? I will visit you next year, hello Mom. After saying that, he bowed before his mother's grave as a farewell. Emperor Tenzthian is someone who always tries to agree to everything Ansia asks, no matter how difficult it is. He can give Ansia anything she wants, and if she wants to learn something, he will immediately find a master in that field to teach Ansia. Not disappointing Emperor Tenzthian's expectations, Ansia studied very hard and taught Blake everything she knew. In the large room, Ansia's clear lecture voice echoed in the space, Your Highness. Thousands of years ago in the Zekan Empire, learning was something only for the aristocracy. Books at that time were extremely expensive because they were made from animal skins. The prince has 1001 questions he wants her to answer. Ansia did not mind at all, she explained to him little by little that when the Zekan Empire collapsed, and the Asteric Empire was born, the Romans opened the Zekan revival movement. That revival movement was headed by the 5 princes of the old empire and things gradually became harsher after that. They targeted Emperor Philip and even burned Tenlarn Palace. Speaking of this, Ansia suddenly felt a strange feeling in her heart, this feeling was very uncomfortable. It kept tormenting her, making her feel like she was falling into a deep hole. In her memory, there was all the red color of a burning sea of fire, in which there was a woman standing in the center of that fire pan, she was screaming frantically, Is that you? You were the one who started the fire, right? How could you do such a bad thing? Open the door quickly. In Ansia's head, those strange sounds and images constantly appeared, they kept echoing in her head, making her extremely uncomfortable. Seeing that, the prince immediately asked her with concern, Ansia. What are you doing? Is it true where Ansia is in pain? Ansia tried to regain her composure, she softly reassured the crown prince, I'm okay. I'm just thinking about a few things. But Black is still very worried about her. Is she really okay? It seemed that Ansia was really okay. She enticed Black to return to her studies. Although the palace was completely burned down, Emperor Philip remained unharmed. Rakshal predicted that this movement would fail, so he burned everything written in the Zelkan language at that time. Told his factions, all the knowledge and history of this land belongs to Old Rum. If the Zelkan Empire disappears, the knowledge that belongs to it in this world will also disappear. Go, if the Zelkan Empire rules the world again, that knowledge will also be returned. Ansia was still tiredly lecturing, but when she turned her head to look at the prince, she panicked. The prince seemed to be in a lot of pain, his whole body was shaking. But no matter how Ansia asked, he still tried to smile and reassure her, it's nothing. I'm still fine. Blake keeps saying he's fine, it definitely hurts, there's no way it's as fine as he says. So Ansia had to make an excuse to end the lesson, it's already late so let's stop here. She also suggested to the crown prince, it'll be better if you take a day off from the sword training today, but the crown prince refused, anyway, you skipped class yesterday. But according to this situation, it's true, the prince can't even lift his sword, but Ansia still wants him to rest a bit. So she gently sat on the bed and then patted the place next to her, come here. Prince. Come here quickly and lie down to rest. You must be very tired after studying all that stuff, should we rest a bit before doing anything else? The crown prince still hesitantly criticized this bed for being too small, but how could he deny his wife's enthusiastic invitation? Black's fingers tightly grasped the hem of his pants. He blushed hesitantly and hesitated before daring to say the real reason. But it's Ansia's bed, so even if she's addicted, she's still embarrassed. Hearing that, Ansia immediately burst out laughing, that has nothing to do with it. Saying that, she pulled the prince's hand towards her bed. Being invited like this and still refusing would make his wife angry. Even though Blake was embarrassed, there was nothing else he could do. On the small bed, the two of them stuck together like Sam. Ansia carefully touched him all over to check Blake's body temperature. She finally breathed a sigh of relief, because he did not have a fever. As if remembering something, Ansia suddenly jumped up and jumped out of bed, wait a minute. I'll go bring the heater back here. But before she could take even half a step, Blake coyly pulled her, don't go. The boy looked at her with sparkling eyes. I'm not cold as long as Ansia is here. Seeing Prince Ansia's weakened appearance, he was helpless. I'm sorry, because she doesn't have that kind of light power. If she were the descendant of light magic, he wouldn't have to go through as much pain as he did. But the crown prince did not allow her to say such self-blame words. He smiled sweetly and said, just having Ansia by my side, that's enough to make me the happiest person in this empire. Seeing the crown prince smiling so happily, Ansia also unconsciously smiled along with him. And then the two of them fell asleep together. Suddenly the sky changed color, it seemed like the two of them had been baking in bed for long enough. Ansia seemed to have regained consciousness, she started touching her husband again, his hand was so warm. It seemed like he was pink again. Who would have thought that now she is extremely confused, wondering what she should do to help him if Black's situation worsens. But Ansia's random actions also made Black fall asleep. It seems that the boy has gotten a lot stronger, and can even practice swords now. But Ansia still stopped him, stop practicing, you've already decided to stay with me today. This reminder made the prince excited, he nodded with excitement, yes. I will spend the whole day today with Ansia. Seeing his cute appearance, Ansia couldn't help but pinch his cheeks a few more times. Coincidentally, today she also received a letter from Diana from the academy. Just looking at the length of the letter is enough to know how much Diana misses her sister. The crown prince sat aside and curiously asked, I wonder if Diana has successfully completed her practice session. After reading the letter for a while, Ansia told him all the events. These stories seem very interesting, Prince. Ansia excitedly suggested to him, I will respond to her, do you want to send another photo? But the Crown Prince refused, he will meet her on the upcoming vacation. But what makes Ansia feel the strangest is that the relationship between Black and Diana is still like good brothers. How did the original female lead and male supporting character become like that? Ansia held Diana's letter in her hand, read it over and over again, and smiled as she read it again. Suddenly her eyes met something. It was the bright red rose lying on the table. It was the first gift that Prince Blake gave her. At this time, the boy also hugged her from behind and asked, "What is Ansia doing?" Who would have thought the wife would answer, "How beautiful are roses?" Is this answer related to the question? And the Crown Prince's trick of hearing is not mediocre. He whispered in a flattering voice, "But Ansia is even more beautiful." Hearing that, Ansia couldn't bear it anymore and burst out laughing. "Do you even know how to talk like that? My general has really grown up." The prince patted his chest confidently. "I am already 11 years old. I have grown up. We're only 2 years apart, we don't look any different from a malnourished person, but confidence feels disgusting." She reminded me, 2 years is not small. The prince immediately sprayed glue, his face stiffened and his eyebrows began to droop like he had diarrhea. Seeing that, Ansia immediately felt guilty. Yes, he's not angry again, is he? I should stop teasing him right away. Ansia raised her hand to touch the prince's forehead again to make sure he did not have a fever. There were no more symptoms, but she was still very worried. Recently, the Crown Prince's condition had been getting worse and worse. So she had to check it closely, but the prince also enjoyed this feeling very much. He pressed Ansia's soft hand to his cheek and happily praised, "Ansia's hand is so warm." Seeing this cute appearance, Ansia couldn't bear it. She immediately rushed forward to hug him. "My general is truly the cutest in the world." The Crown Prince happily teases, and is also cool, right? So in that dark room, there were two people who were in love with each other and refused to let go. An early morning at the Crown Prince's palace, the sky is blue, the clouds are white, the sunshine is golden, the weather today is extremely beautiful. Chef Ansia treated the Crown Prince to a new dish today. Try this hot tofu that also has soy milk. A whole crowd of people gathered around the delicious meal, everyone with hungry eyes praising it. "It's so delicious. It's really delicious. The Crown Prince is truly a genius." Ansia shyly explained, "These are dishes from the East, I just follow the recipe." Her heart was already sweating. If this keeps up, she will bask in her compliments day after day. They're gone. Ansia also did not forget to bring it to her father-in-law. Miss Nguai Lai reminded everyone, "Enjoy your meal, I will bring some to your majesty before it gets cold." But it's true that whenever there's good food, Uncle Unhan appears, the food is a bad one. But why does this spy like to grab bad food on himself like this? Hearing the sound of a cat meowing, Ansia immediately knew that the black cat had come to visit her again. She bent down to happily pet the cat. "Long time no see, where have you been?" It was a good scene and was caught by her jealous husband. Looking at her face, she knew Black had started eating the cat's sour vinegar. So the boy quickly hugged the cat from Ansia's hand. "I will play with it, you should go before the food gets cold." To reassure her, he even pretended to smile until 10 teeth were exposed, assuring that he would take good care of the cat. Ansia listens then leave with peace of mind. Looking at Ansia's figure as she moved further and further away, both man and cat had their own thoughts. Unhan was already panicking, he blamed himself, "This is really bad, I have to run away but I can't move." The guy had a bad feeling. Waiting for Ansia to leave, Black asked Unhan in a cold voice, "Who are you?" Unhan was so scared that he turned from a black cat to a white cat. It seems like he was in trouble. If he was a spy and was discovered like this, that would be the end of it. The prince spoke in a low voice. Threatening, "Don't even think about running away. I know that you are not an ordinary cat. Now, no matter how innocent Unhan looks at the Crown Prince, it's already too late. Is it worth suffering for the sake of food? I'm sure inside his heart he's screaming very madly right now." The Crown Prince naturally has no intention of sparing this suspicious black cat. Every time there is delicious food, he runs to ask for it, and even fights over his wife. Blake Dat, the cat facing me, started asking, you have been following me and Ansia, right? I really want to know your true identity. Different from the cuteness when he was with Ansia, the prince used a tough tone to reminisce. When I was a child, every time I get sick, someone will always appear and heal me. After I was taken to a separate temple just because the traces of the curse appeared, the night there is no longer lonely, I can sleep well. Every night we have to fight with nightmares and extreme pain. I even had to call out father's name, but he never helped me just once. But at that time, a man wearing a black cloak appeared. When that person came closer, I felt much better. He healed me. We can't see his face clearly because every time he appears, he's mysterious and darkness always surrounds us. But I can feel that on that mysterious person's body there is a smell like black and pale water, or more accurately, it smells like a bone. And now I can feel that power coming from you, and that taste is the smell of black water. Hearing those extremely logical and well-founded inferences, Eunhan could only raise her head and look at him confused. He silently thought, so now that the Crown Prince knows his identity, I shouldn't hide it from him anymore. Having said that, around Eunhan began to appear white smoke like a crazy wind. Then very quickly he returned to his normal human form, kneeling down in a very formal manner. I am very happy to meet His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, the future of the Empire. Then he gently pulled down his beauty-sealing hat, revealing jet black hair in a face full of Asian features. His name is Eunhan, he probably wants to kneel right now. I'm sorry to Your Majesty the Emperor. I'm sorry Your Majesty for accidentally selling out your divine food. Blake was surprised to realize, exactly as I predicted. You are that person. At this point, there was nothing left to hide anymore. Eunhan honestly told everything to the Crown Prince. I am a person under Your Majesty's shadow. He sent me to secretly protect you, Your Highness. Hearing this, Blake was a little skeptical. He didn't expect that the Emperor, who was also his biological father, would send someone to protect him. Black smiled weakly. In his heart he thought, I thought I was completely abandoned after the goddess's curse. So he didn't abandon me. Seeing that Eunhan's appearance was not at all similar to that of a native, Black asked him curiously, are you an Easterner? Eunhan quickly nodded to acknowledge the Crown Prince's judgment. Even Blake looked at Eunhan and couldn't help but praise, you look so pure. Even though it's a bit dark, your power is still clean and pure. While praising Eunhan, the prince suddenly remembered what had just happened. His face frowned. He asked Eunhan seriously, but you said this was a secret mission, so why did you reveal this to me? Remembering this, Eunhan's face fell, being a spy but having his identity discovered just for food. Do you think it's humiliating? Eunhan honestly confessed, please forgive me. I just really missed the taste of my hometown's food. The guy told Black. Not a single detail was left out. Since I saw the Crown Princess's cooking skills, old memories came rushing back to me. So I couldn't take it anymore. I finally had to reveal my identity. Eunhan helplessly admitted that I had not obeyed the Emperor's order just for privacy reasons. I will tell everything with him and accept my punishment, and I also hope that Your Highness will forgive me, the one who can't help it. Black also didn't bother to compare with Eunhan. The boy was never someone who liked to make things difficult for others, so he immediately refused. It's not like that. You have protected me for a long time and I don't want you to be punished at all. Seeing that Eunhan still wanted to say more, Black quickly interrupted, don't tell anyone about this, not even the Emperor, and I will keep this a secret. At this moment, Eunhan was really a bit disappointed in himself, his eyes were filled with sadness. I tricked everyone by disguising myself as a cat but he didn't scold me. He even promised to help me keep this a secret. One Eunhan sighed and sincerely said to Black, thank you, Your Highness. Black didn't say anything more. Suddenly he took a step closer to Eunhan, then used a more loving tone to remind this threat, stop lurking around Ansia. Even a brave person like Eunhan would be scared to death after hearing this. Is he being considered by the Crown Prince as a petty person? Do you look like that type of person? The Crown Prince still did not stop. The boy gave Eunhan a cold warning look, if I see you flirting with my wife again, I will not let you go as easily as this time. After that, he still stared at someone else's son as if he wanted to eat it alive. How can he be this jealous at just a little age? Unhan seemed to stand rooted to the spot, unable to move. The Crown Prince stood to one side, looking at him from head to toe, then nodded, yes, he does have that oriental look that Ansia really likes. Besides, he's also handsome. So Black told himself that he could not let this handsome oriental guy near Ansia. One day he would lose his wife, and it would be best to separate him from Ansia. At this moment in the Emperor's palace, perhaps Ansia was still on her way here, she didn't know that. At home, there is a heated fight between Unhan and the Crown Prince. She gently knocked on the heavy door, cock cock. Then Ms. Tan Tuk opened the door and saw the person inside. She smiled brightly and greeted, "Father. I'm here." Coincidentally, Colin was also here at this time. He was still busy with the documents in his hand, but did not forget to say hello to her. "The Crown Prince is here to visit." Seeing the guy appear here, Ansia was not surprised at all. She politely asked politely, "Are you waiting for me?" Knowing Ansia was teasing him, Colin smiled and replied, "Of course. I'm always waiting for you to come here." She is not foolish enough to believe these sweet words, she bluntly exposes, "It seems like you are waiting for this whole harem, not just me, right?" Colin smiled and explained, "In my opinion, you are the goddess of the harem, you are the only person who can help me get out of this endless business." Ansia nodded as if manipulated. It sounds funny, but what Colin said wasn't wrong, he never gets to rest on time. I can't listen to these two people talking so senselessly anymore. The Emperor immediately interrupted, "Stop saying these nonsense and get out quickly." As if his homeroom teacher let him leave school early, Colin happily obeyed, "Yes. Please obey, Your Majesty." If the Crown Princess hadn't come, I would have had to stay here all night. Seeing that this brat had chased him away and still refused to leave, Emperor Tenzthian harshly reminded him, "It seems like you want to stay in this palace for the rest of your life, right? Then let me prepare it for you." Colin knew what to do, so he happily asked permission and ran away, leaving behind the Crown Princess who was standing on her knees witnessing the scene just now. Seeing the Emperor still working hard, Ansia began to sing the eternal song again, "Your Majesty. Are you starting to work too hard again? The time people spend on work is getting more and more dense." But the Emperor still did not raise his face at all, his eyes were still glued to the pile of documents on the table, teasing his daughter-in-law, "So you came here to nag me?" Who would have thought that the Emperor is still the Emperor? There are always 7-7-4-9 ways to change the subject with Ansia. He looked at her and then started complaining again in retaliation. "It's this cold and you're still dressed flimsy outfit, is that so? I think I should buy another coat for you." And so the story turned around 360 degrees, and the person who had to listen to the nagging was Ansia. In the end, she had no choice but to laugh off the flattery, holding out the hot box, putting that aside, "Your Majesty. Let's try this."